Hello, everyone. It is Medusa, and today I am joined by Mr. Mad Cat, as always.
As always.
And say hello to Mildra again.
Hi.
He's been on here a few times. And yes, this is another episode of CobraCat's reviews or whatever the fuck. And today we are going to be reviewing mostly the debate that went on between Blaire and Laci Green last night, the live stream. I think it started at like 5:30 Eastern time, or maybe I don't remember. But yeah, I wasn't there the entire time. I was there in and out because it was really long. It was like 2.5 hours. And yeah.
So in and out, and it was really long. Things that she said.
Phrasing. Boom.
Yeah, I think we use the term debate loosely.
Yeah,
I've
well, she labeled it as a conversation.
Oh, fuck.
I think we conversation loosely.
Yeah.
There was actually a lot of debate on various groups I was in about what was actually going on whether Blaire just kind of lost control and Laci Green was dominating. But we also theorized that what was going on is that Blaire White was letting Laci Green hang herself.
I'm honestly going with the latter, because now I mentioned this before we went live, but watching the debate and just hearing the way Laci would talk, both in her videos and in that thing as well, and the stuff that she would keep trying to repeat and come back to as if trying to browbeat, it very much reminded me of the debate tactics I've seen by some young Earth creationists. You know, people like William Lane Craig with his shit-eating grin. Ken Ham, who is I don't know if he's batshit crazy or batshit stupid, but half of one of them is right.
Oh, he's Australian, so
good point. Maybe he also is trying way too hard to steal my beard gimmick and failing. David Cameron, you know, the guy who spearheaded that god awful God is Dead, God's Not Dead movie, and a bunch of other things, because I guess he's trying to make up for the fact that everybody's shitting on his dad who was in jail for fraud.
Yeah,
but the reason why I bring up those names is because in all those cases, they weren't trying to debate. It's more of, I have the right answer, and I'm trying to convince you that my answer is right, and everything that I say is in service to that, and anything that you say is the result of a flawed opinion that you need me to help you fix. It's that whole savior saved complex, you know, kind of like the virgin whore complex.
No, I definitely see what you're talking about there, and yeah, I definitely see that with Laci Green. And you know, when I started watching her, I was amazed that she does have an understanding of quite a few things, and it was correct. Okay, so she's not stupid. Okay, she understands a lot of different things. The problem is her interpretation of it and her ego that she knows best and everyone should listen to her just because.
the other thing that was really telling, and this is because, and I picked up on this pretty easily because of my experiences with Scientology years and years ago, is the glare. Like this fixed, unblinking, staring right at a specific point all the time. And that was why when I first, yes, like that, exactly like that, and just as distracting too.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at the way people who are heavily involved in cults speak and communicate, you see that a lot, and once you see it, you will never unsee it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And given what college is like for feminists, that it's basically indoctrination. It's basically teaching individuals not to think for yourself, but to rehearse all of these talking points as they are the terminus to any conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why they're not prepared for if someone has a disagreement with you. Laci, though, is different than that in a way, because she's actually prepared for any conversational point. Now, it's not to say that she has the correct answer, but she's a little bit more prepared for it. She actually thinks beyond what other feminists are capable of, and that actually makes her a very dangerous opponent, because she can't think for herself, and this is the thoughts that she has.
Although she does end up making the same making the same failing in that a large amount of her approach is about looking good in a debate, and not whether or not the facts presented actually make a point. That's kind of why I'm not the biggest fan of debates, because instead of being about finding any sort of objective truth, it ends up being a winning and losing game. Like who can look the best and who can talk the best. If I wanted to figure out who's a better talker, I just listen to a sports interview.
Well, I think Mad Cat, what you were saying about the indoctrinating in schools and stuff, I thought it was interesting that Laci said that her and like all of her feminist friends or whatever, they felt that when they went to college or women's studies or whatever, that they felt like enlightened and so happy and all this shit. And I was just thinking, like, I'd be like the opposite. And Blaire was like, yeah, no, it was more like a wake up call. Like, this shit is like crazy. And
the fact that she used the term enlightened is ultimately more telling, and it kind of goes back to that whole cult theory. The last time I was on here, did I go into the cult test?
Yes, we have talked about it before.
All right, just wanted to make sure, because I was considering doing a minor bit of experiment of using the first 10 questions in that, and comparing them to the way Laci was acting during the debate. But something I need to get out of the way first is the whole conversation angle, where every time I hear that, every time I hear someone like Laci or someone say they want to start a conversation or have a conversation or some other variety of it, I cringe. And the reason why I cringe is because it's one of those soft language kind of things where they're saying that to try and make it sound warm and inviting when they're, so that they can look like the baby face when they really aren't. They end up just having this disconnect between their words and their actions.
Well, when I think conversation, when they say, well, we want to have a conversation about it, I'm like, my first thought is Seneca Falls, where women basically had a conversation about their issues in the 1800s, and men were allowed, but they had to sit in the back and not say anything. And that's what I always think about when they say they want a conversation, is that they don't actually want a conversation. They want someone to do things on their terms. It's like, oh, we can have a conversation, but you can't say anything. And if you do, hack you and you straw man. So we're not going to address anything you have to say and do everything we can to make you look bad.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really like how condescending Laci was either the entire time. She just like, you know, she made it seem like she was just entertaining Blaire's ideas as if, you know, they had zero credibility just because she thinks that she's wrong or assumes that she's wrong. And it's like, you know, you could at least like, you know, entertain the fact that, or not entertain because that's what she used, sorry. You could at least like try and accept that there is other data, other and situations other than what she has heard of. And that's like another thing that she was kind of hypocritical about. She kept telling Blaire like, oh, well, yeah, you're just saying different contexts for different stuff. So
context
you know,
is one of the red herrings they love. Sorry.
What?
Context is focusing on context is one of those red herrings that they love. I've noticed of always trying to shift the conversation instead of to the facts to how you present the facts or how you look, as if which, you know, which in a way I suppose isn't too surprising given how a large chunk of her gimmick is on her own looks. Now, I'm not saying that to be insulting. That's just a fact. That's part of how she draws an audience to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But when you focus on that instead of addressing what someone is saying, you're committing one of the more annoying logical fallacies because context is when you use context that way, you're effectively saying I don't like the way you said that. It's the same way as saying it's basically, to use their words, tone policing.
Well, I do agree with you, Modern Medusa, that God, what was the point you were just making? I thought that you were so right about it. You're talking about her condescending attitude.
Context and
well,
condescension.
before that, but there was something else that she said specifically, talking about context, talking about her condescending attitude.
The whole thing going in.
I know. Hold on. I have to say it or else I'll forget it again. You were talking about how she didn't entertain the idea that she could be wrong about something.
Yeah.
That she went in there thinking that she had all of the answers and then kept turning around back onto Blaire that, oh, well, you need to give specifics. Oh, well, you're just doing this or you're doing that. And Laci Green, the best debates are when both people come into it realizing that they might learn something, that they might even have their opinions changed because the other person is able to present an argument. And, you know, it was one reason why I got out of the creationism debates that I used to be a part of. Because talking to these people, they thought that they were right. in every circumstance. And even when I could logically prove that what they believed was inconsistent, even amongst their own tenets and laws and whatever the Bible had to say, they're like, well, no matter what you say, I'm going to believe what I believe. And it's like, why do I want to debate someone who doesn't at least want to acknowledge that they could be wrong? And that's what Laci does. Now, you could argue that Blaire White also kind of does the same thing, that she's so adamant about what she believes in that it's hard to convince her that she's wrong. But I kind of get the sense with Blaire White that if you presented a really good argument, she would consider what it is that you say.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though. Like, Laci kind of makes it seem like it's black and white. Like, you either believe that, for instance, this person in the chat, Malcolm from the North, said, Laci lost me on the "we have to believe all rape accusations" portion of the conversation. And it's like, Laci's like, we have to believe all rape accusations. And Blair is like, yeah, but, we have to acknowledge that, you have to doubt, or not doubt, but you have to question some of them. And Laci's just like, yeah, but no, if you question them, then that's saying that they weren't raped. And she's like, no, but like, it's trying to figure out if they were actually raped or not. You can still be supportive while trying to figure out exactly what happened. And it's just, it doesn't make sense that she wouldn't be able to combine the two views. Like, we have to acknowledge that people lie about being raped, and we have to be supportive of rape victims at the same time. It's hard, but it's just something that we have to deal with.
Well, Did we go ahead and start watching some of this?
Oh, you wanted to watch some of it?
I temper my sense of decency in anticipation, but one thing I wanted to get out of my system, if both of you can see in the Hangout chat, I put a link to a certain image that I think is quite apropos, given both what you've mentioned and the way that she carried herself. It's a cartoon I've used multiple times over the last few years about the difference between the scientific method and the creationist method. And even though this isn't a one-to-one comparison, it wouldn't be too far off to say that Laci was. Now, the whole thing I've been getting at is that Laci is very much acting like a creationist, especially a young earther. Whereas,
well, no.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
You are correct, because this is what I see in feminist research. I read a lot of feminist research in any amount that I can, and I notice the same thing every single time. They start with the conclusion and they work backwards to find evidence to support it. When actual research, they don't even really try to find a conclusion in research. They just do the research, they test everything out, and then they do have their initial conclusions, but it's not like this is the only conclusion you can draw from this.
It's more or
less open it up, so if anyone else wants to use this as a starting point, go ahead and do so.
And that is in part why I have such a high respect for anybody who's willing to go through peer review, because once you put your paper in peer review, it's going to get its ass kicked a lot.
No, not anymore. Feminist research have shown that politics are very much a part of peer review. I mean, if I was on a peer review board for some of these studies, I would rip them apart. I mean, I'm not even a scientist, I only have a bachelor's degree.
Is that the case even
science,
for hard
and yet
science?
I can find. Is it peer review for hard science? No, I guess it would be considered soft science since it's mostly psychology. But
Yeah,
even then,
I think that
your testing methods are entirely faulty. And I'm amazed that anyone passed the peer review on this. Because I would have been like, no. Like one point in one study that was recently discussed with among my Facebook friends and also discussed on my show before was a group of feminists basically tested boys in a school in Italy on whether or not they learned aggressiveness, violence, and sexism from video games. And what they did is they had boys play video games and then tested them afterwards to see if they had any of the behaviors. Well, the one thing they didn't do was test them before games to find out what their mental state was. They skipped that step because they knew that it would not show what it is that they wanted to show.
Yeah.
I mean, how do we know these boys didn't already have these views? And of course, there were a lot of other things. They actually asked the boys directly, do you have any sexist views? Do you think video games cause sexism? They all said no. And the study still concluded that it was video games that caused them to be sexist.
Yeah, I see that a lot, especially I think this is part of why I have more respect for hard science than soft science. but I digress. What was that?
I said I like my science nice and hard too.
Hey, phrasing.
Hey, context.
All right, that'll work.
I'm on a live stream. Angie's home.
So should we start watching this or no?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go ahead. What's the safe word?
What's one we haven't used yet?
Well, it should be something in relation to green and white.
White out.
We could do jizz for white.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is nothing.
That I was confused about is, you obviously see this through a different lens, and I'm trying to reconcile those two. And my own view of gender is actually different than both of those. And maybe my view, but I'm just curious if it's like, are those people who see it as a construct, as a way of validating their identity, missing something?
Yeah, I definitely think they're missing something. I think that what you said about how believing there's a construct actually supports the idea of people, living as different genders, because I really think that it goes against it, because you can allow that there are anomalies within that there are male and female brains, and that there are anomalies within that that people can be born with. For instance, trans women are born with white matter levels similar to that of cis women. And that scientists argue that they feel transgender, or they feel as if they should live as a woman. So a lot of times in the conversation of those things are left out entirely. For instance, you had done a video. I think you had specifically stated that there were no differences between male and females neurologically and in the brain.
I may have said that. I've been making videos for 10 years, but I actually don't anymore because it's factually wrong.
Okay, well that's good, because I was gonna, kind of going on that a little bit, not in a harsh way, but just
Well, so, the conversation about brain differences is really interesting because it is really nuanced and we actually don't fully understand it yet. We do understand, right?
Did you just make a noise?
Yeah, what specifically did you say was wrong?
What do you mean?
Laci, she said something is actually wrong.
I
Did you hear
don't
that part?
recall.
Oh.
There was a bit of skipping.
The contract
Yeah,
actually
no
supports the idea of people, living as different genders because of what you said. I actually think that it goes against it because there are anomalies within that there are male and female brains and that there are anomalies within that that people can be born with. For instance, trans women are born with levels similar to that of cis women. And that's one reason that scientists argue that they feel transgender or they feel as if they should live as a woman. So a lot of times in the conversation of those things are left out entirely. For instance, you had done a video. I think you had specifically stated that there were no differences between male and females neurologically and in the brain.
I may have said that. I've been making videos for 10 years, but I actually don't subscribe to you anymore.
The whole maybe it's just me, but the whole I may have said that I've been doing this for a long time. Am I the only one who detected a level of smug in that?
Yes.
From Blaire?
No, not from.
I don't
from
think
Blaire,
that was
from
smug.
Green. With the whole, I may have said that, but
I don't see it as her being smug or even brushing it off. I see it as, hey, you know what? I don't remember every single thing I've said in the last 10 years. Maybe I did say it somewhere, but it's not what I believe now.
maybe it's just experience talking. But every time I see that, it always feels like a brush off. Because again, I've seen creationists pull that same stunt.
Yeah, well, it's possible, but I don't know. I'm trying to be objective here. I'm trying not to let my personal distaste of Laci Green influence how I'm perceiving her, which is hard to do. And in that moment, I don't think that she was being smug or trying to brush her off. I think she was just trying to keep things on point.
I think it was a little bit of both.
Continue.
Okay, well that's good because I was gonna kind of going on that a little bit, not in a harsh way, but just.
Well, so the conversation about brain differences is really interesting because it is really nuanced and we actually don't fully understand it yet. We do understand, right? And as you stated, males and females, and I kind of actually just as a necessarily, but for in general, the distinction between sex and gender. Right now, we're not necessarily talking about gender identity. We're talking about brains in terms of how they are sexed at birth. Right? Those are the two main sexes. The vast majority of people fall in roughly those categories, and there is nuance in between. Right? So I'm going to speak in generalizations here, fully acknowledging that there is some variation across sex. But like you said, there is more female brains. There's more gray matter in male brains. Another male difference is that men have larger amygdalas in adulthood, which is related to emotions and emotional processing. That doesn't.
Okay, Jiz. Green had just said here is actually correct. That adult men have larger amygdalas in adulthood. I do want to briefly state why she mentioned specifically adulthood and why she put that in there, because it's actually true, but it is a nuanced thing that the amygdala is basically a complicated conversation to have, but basically it's how you have emotional reactions to stimuli. that anytime you perceive something or feel something, it goes through your amygdala first before it goes to the part of your brain that can respond to it. And the amygdala will then like try to tie in like, hey, have we experienced this before? We have. Okay, let's react to it how we did before. And this is where we get into the discussion of fight or flight mode, which deals with the amygdala. But boys and girls develop their amygdala in different ways throughout their life. Girls tend to develop theirs faster at a younger age than boys do. And this is why girls are seen as emotionally mature at a young age. But around late teens, it stops developing, and boys, they continue to develop, kind of catching up, and end up becoming bigger into adulthood. And they believe this is why men are more likely to have a physical, emotive reaction to stimuli than women are. I know, boring science talk, but I wanted to confirm that what Laci Green is saying is actually correct.
So,
and it
It didn't really have
I-
anything to do with like genders. There being like a I don't know. It sounded like she was implying that there was a different gender or sex or something like that. It was, I don't know.
It very much feels like there is a. I guess the way it was worded, I feel like there was a slight bit of weasel wording.
There was. Because what she said is that we're talking about just the brain and sex, and that there are two emotions, and those are the two major sex groups that people belong into. Sorry, indicating that there are other sexes. Those were her weasel words that she was trying to introduce, that there are others, but those are the two major ones, and there is not. I mean, even an intersex individual is some combination of the two.
Yeah.
Entirely a third gender. They're just two genders combined. All right, let me go ahead and continue on.
Necessarily mean they have, like the relationship is very complicated, but that trans or like gender stuff is not just a performance, and it's not just a thing that we do in society. Some feminist theorists feel that way. I do not. I think that there are, like when you go way back, to agrarian
and here she's actually still trying to weasel her way, because she's like, well, I don't think trans is being a like performance. And it's like, for those who are legitimately trans, I do think it was something that they were born as and something that they need to correct in themselves. But there are many people today that use trans as a performance, that to be different, they want to say that they're trans so they can be treated differently, to be special.
Yeah.
Well, if there wasn't that whole performance thing, then how come the stack exists?
So what exists?
The progressive stack. Like what? Like if that didn't exist, then people who are doing it as a performance wouldn't have an incentive to do so. It looked like someone in the comments said that it gets real shit about an hour in.
Yeah.
We can go ahead and skip to an hour if we want. And Black Knight Fools writes, he's saying that Laci is not stupid. And she's not. She's actually pretty intelligent, which I was surprised about.
Yeah,
She,
me too.
but the problem is her interpretation of it that's suspect.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's go to the hour mark. There we go.
Like happens, you know, and it's like
I think when it comes to celebrities, I think when it comes to celebrities or sports figures, there's definitely something sick there that people can overlook certain things like that. But I don't think that. But I don't think that would be to like society as a whole. That society just overlooks it and just automatically forgives cats. I don't think so.
I mean, there's no like universal way to really nuanced case by case. But my experience, I work hands-on in sexual violence with male and female survivors all the time. Your perception of this is being skewed by the internet. It's not nearly as widespread or detrimental.
I'm trying.
And
It's going to take a moment, so go ahead.
Two things. One, I feel like I can make a drinking game out of the number of times she says nuance. But if I feel like if I did that, I'd be dead. I'd be dead from alcohol poisoning.
Yeah.
Two, the whole that is a the term I use for that kind of stuff is walrus tusk. It's a label to slap on, and it doesn't really mean anything in the context of an argument. It's like saying, there are so many possibilities. Just to have a word. What?
Right.
If you're going to start screaming, can you mute first while we're talking?
and third, going with this whole I work with people in shelters I work with abuse victims of both genders all the time. It's like a appeal to authority does not make a good look, Miss Green. No one cares what you do in your off time for the purpose of this debate. What is important is arguments, and I keep seeing with her, especially with some of the pauses and the way that she carries herself, because I notice these things. It is, as a wiser man once said, flowery arms and embroidered legs. She is very smart at communicating, but that's where it begins and ends.
She's still kind of a bitch, though.
Well, I love the part that she just said there that, well, this is my job. And it's like, your job? What the fuck are you talking about? You're on YouTube, and when you're not on YouTube, you're on MTV talking about bullshit. I mean, does she actually have a job where she's like a counselor at a rape shelter or whatever? And how can you be talking male rape survivors when the majority of them cannot get help in this country? How can you have a good pulse on what male rape survivors have to go through if they can't even get help most of the time for themselves? How is your job able to interact with them?
At best, the help is the equivalent of you need to fix how violent your masculinity is. In fact, I distinctly recall that one call-in shelter took that exact route.
Yeah. They basically called in saying, hey, I need help, I'm being abused. And it's like, well, what did you do to provoke it? Of a woman, that would be on like the 6 o'clock news saying, oh, this is what women have to go through. But if it's a man, no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
Well, someone's saying, oh, Phoenix Corvina is saying that it's her right to have a job without us knowing. and that's all well and fine, and maybe she's mentioned it before what her job is, but it's hard for me to believe. It's just, and I'll say it here, she was kind of smug in that. It's like, well, it's my job to know this. So, and basically shutting down Blaire White on her opinions, because she also said, oh, well, you're just being influenced by the internet. I actually do this as a job. So
she used it as like, oh, I'm more intelligent in this situation and I know more about everything because I do this and that.
I'll be blunt. When it comes to what her job is, I frankly don't give a shit.
Yeah, me neither.
What I do take issue with is using I have a job as a dodge. That I have a problem with, because when you're doing that, you're effectively trying to dodge the conversation or sidetrack it.
I like what Adindra Whitehall said, which is, if her job is being a counselor for rape victims, then listening and believing is her job. That's true, because you have to. It doesn't matter if they're telling the truth or not. You're just supposed to listen to them and be like, you're valid. Your feelings are important and stuff like that. Even if they're like, just talking out of their ass, and Well,
I did a quick search on Wikipedia about Laci Green, and it lists her occupation as YouTube personality, video blogger, and sex educator. So what part of any of that makes her an expert on rape victims?
I don't know. Apparently she also teaches sex ed to kids. I don't know about that, but
all right, let's continue on.
I think that this is a paranoia that people have. And look, I understand. I get it. And I think that this...
Wait, what's a paranoia? I didn't understand what you said. What's a paranoia? Like that I'm talking
this
about.
Idea that everyone, that victims of sexual violence are out to get someone or something. Like, it's a grand conspiracy. I'm not saying you are, but this is what I've seen online, right? Like, and what I've heard in talking about this. I think this grand conspiracy from women just ruin a man's life or whatever. I think that is to that story, and there's more to why people feel that way. But it's just not supported by the
hold
data.
on, I'm trying to just first.
I'm trying to just first.
So what's right there is so funny to me, that she's conflating that, I'm a person who says this, that there are women out there who will falsely accuse people as a means to either go after people or avoid responsibility. And what Laci Green is doing is focusing on people who say that, people like me, which I think is true, and there's more than enough evidence to support that, as being a representation of how I feel about that rape doesn't actually exist, that I don't think it actually exists, and it's just women. And it's like you're taking one argument people have and you're spreading it for all things. And it's like, well, that's what the internet does. So, well, that's what I've experienced on the internet. And it's like, no, it isn't. And you goddamn well know that is not what people are saying. You are trying to twist this around to make it seem like that we live in a rape culture. We don't live in a rape culture, not by any stretch of the imagination. Culture, and she's twisting around facts to try to make what she's doing that more important.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Pretty much. And the other thing that I know, the other thing, and once again, we have the nuance card being played, but there's also the fact that, well, that it is the same argument that I've heard so many times, and I do, and mostly the fact that whenever I see someone try and pull the conspiracy card, that really is telling, especially since as we discussed before, for someone who loves to say nuance, she can't seem to figure out the gray areas in her own mentalities. Also, yeah. Irish Pug, I think chocolate guy is that's the first time somebody's called me that.
More like a
chocolate rain.
All right.
Kind of a science girl, you know, like I there's no data, I can't like level with that argument.
Oh my god, Jizz. Okay. Why did she even say that? Like, does she not like realize that a lot of the shit that Blaire is saying is true? Like, I mean, I'm sorry, but like,
what, calling herself a science girl?
Well, she's a science girl and she needs evidence to prove it, but if she doesn't see the evidence, then it must not actually exist. I mean, the evidence is out there. I mean, every week we are hearing about a woman who said that she lied about being raped for whatever reason. And people like Laci Green were like, well, that's just one person. I don't know that it happens any more than that. And it's like, well, yeah, you look at one single case, that's not representative of an epidemic. That's why you've got to look at all of the cases and realize that this is an actual problem. You've got to look at the data. But if you shy away from the data just so you have reasonable deniability of, oh, well, I'm a science girl and I have to deal with the facts. And if I don't see the facts, then I can't, do anything about them. Knowingly ignorant of a subject still makes you ignorant as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to finish, Vanessa? Sorry,
no,
I interrupted you.
I didn't have anything to follow up. I just find it laughable that she claims to be about science, and yet she's not following any of the principles. Like, this is why I have a hard time respecting soft science.
Well, I have a big fascination with the soft science, like psychology, but I do believe that many people today in positions of authority within the soft science community are full of themselves and are talking out of their asses. I think that soft science are as legitimate as the hard science is. It's just that the people at the helm are too politically motivated.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand your disdain for the soft sciences and the preference for the hard sciences. But, my opinion is that the soft sciences are still very valid. It's just we got a lot of morons at the top.
I'm saying that in instances where a rape accusation is made, true or false, the man's life is always ruined.
That's true. Like I've worked on a lot of cases. Like literally over 1,000 cases. All right, in my life, and in the last 10 years. And my experience is that yes, you're right. That sometimes people pay consequences as they should. Sometimes there is a more nuanced situation where it's a little bit hard to tell what's going on. And do people suffer? Yes, I'd say that both, or sometimes that's actually usually more than 2 parties involved, all of those parties. But I just don't think that this is the problem when it comes to sexual assault in our, I don't think this is our issue, you know?
Jiz, she completely dismissed what Blaire White just said. Blaire White said, guilty or innocent, a man's life is destroyed by this. And
she tries to turn it onto herself.
Yeah, well, Laci Green's like, well, I don't think that's the problem, because I mean, yes, if either they did it, yeah, they deserve to be punished, but I don't think that's the problem with, you know, sexual assault. And it's like, actually address what Blaire White just said about how people's lives are destroyed by this if they didn't do it and they're still accused of it.
Yeah,
And
basically
just
not
because
addressing.
thousands of cases.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
I was gonna say basically she's saying by not responding and not saying that not acknowledging that it's a problem, she's basically saying it's not a problem, in my opinion. So like we don't have to think about it because, you know, it's not a big deal.
And she's done 1,000 cases in her lifetimes, especially in the last 10 years. I still want to know what her career is that allows her to do that. But even, I mean, unless she's like a social worker of some kind that's not listed on Wikipedia, it's hard for me to believe that she can have any sort of access to know the full extent of what a rape case might do to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So and just because she's worked on 1,000 cases, have there only been 1,000 rapes since she's been alive? Has she worked on every single one of them?
The 1,000
Just
cases thing, I doubt she's even worked. I doubt she's even worked on that many. It's just a number to, again, it's flowery arms and embroidered legs, trying to look good instead of actually trying to do good. And I can.
And without knowing what her specific job is, that's going to be the tough part. Maybe it was mentioned within the hour block that we skipped, but
I doubt it was based on her body language.
Just because you have, I'll give it to you. Okay, you've worked on 1,000 rape cases. To what context, I don't know, but let's say that you were there every step of the way. There are a lot of rape cases every year, and your 1,000 doesn't even represent 1% of the rape cases that go through court in a given year. I think, well, actually it might be 1% because I think the total is about 90,000 per year that happen. So you got 1%. That 1% is not enough to tell you what the other 99% is doing. And you can't say that you're an expert just because your personal experience, you know, has a certain thing. You don't know.
Well, that's the difference between Laci and Blaire, is that Blaire acknowledges that all the situations Laci talks about do happen, but she knows they're not like in like huge numbers, unlike Laci, who like assumes that because you know, due to her personal experiences, that you know, the issues that Blaire brings up are not important.
Yeah.
The problem. I'm not saying that the only conversation there is to be had about rape is how accusations are made. Obviously not. You know, I'm not even here to argue that most accusations are false, because obviously. Well, because that just wouldn't like make sense. But I will say that the #1 crime for releases people from prison unjustly is real. To be said about that.
Maybe. I'm not familiar with the. Actually, the Innocence Project, they investigated.
They investigate crimes and they try to release people who are wrongly accused and wrongly thrown away.
Yeah, I think I've heard about them through the Serial podcast. But that may be the case. I don't think that necessarily the point. I think that
You, Laci Green, fuck you. I'm flipping her off right now. I don't think that makes any particular point. Fuck you. She just made a point and you completely dismissed it of, oh, I think I've heard of them, but that doesn't make any particular point. It does make a point. It makes a fucking point that there are people who lie about rape.
Yeah.
Now, I agree with Blaire White that it's not 100% of the cases. It might not even be 50% of the cases. I think it's around 25%, although it's hard to measure that actual thing. But there is enough of it where people are being sent to jail and later released. And either because the person who claimed they were raped comes forward and says they weren't, or they're able to use actual evidence to prove that they couldn't have done it. That proves a very big point that we have to take false rape into consideration when it comes to actual rapes. And that feminists should be against false rape.
Yeah.
That when it happens, it hurts actual victims of rape. And yet Laci Green's like, oh, well, we don't need to concern ourselves with that because, well, you're not really making any point. We need to focus on rape and just believe anyone who says they're raped that they are raped.
Mm-hmm.
It ultimately...
Fuck you bitch. I was really trying to be right in the middle. I'm going to give her a chance, to explain herself. You lost me right there. You horrible cunt. I'm sorry. I'll be quiet.
Whole conversation about rape is just very one-sided on her end, and we should probably skip ahead a little bit because it just gets dumber.
But it is
right,
ultimately telling.
Yeah.
I'll go to 120.
Anecdotes.
No, you're not really letting me finish. When you look at, you go to prison for rape, sexual assault. They're fucking 21 and they're 16. Okay, that's gross, but something as you range from that to violently raping someone in an alleyway. You go to prison for that. I mean, even in prison systems, people that go there, we typically see as, having a low moral code. Murderers are in there. Robbers are in there. If you're a rapist and you go to prison, you have to be put oftentimes in, isolation because they will beat the shit out of you. They will kill you if you. I mean, would you agree with that? I mean, that's a very common thing.
I feel like that's something that data can answer, not like a personal opinion or anecdote. So for the sake of this conversation, I'll go with.
I believe
what she's doing.
I believe her dance is slide to the left, goalpost to the left. Not necessarily moving
basically,
the goalpost, but just sidestepping anything that might make her position not look good. Because looking good is first and foremost in her mind.
Right. She can't even entertain the idea that there might be some evidence out there that contradicts hers. And she's like, well, I haven't seen any data for that. So, I'm just going to okay, whatever. She can't even entertain the idea of if that's true, then this is what my opinion is. And that's what a discussion is. You don't have all of these facts ready to go, and then be able to sit there and analyze them. Even if Blaire White had actual evidence that showed exactly what she was saying, Laci Green would be like, well, this study, I have to review it and look it over and make sure it's legit, so I can't really comment on it right now.
Yeah, well, the problem is that, like, Blaire, you know, the things that she says, even though she doesn't have shit ready to go, neither does Laci. She hasn't, you know, provided anything, and a lot of her stuff comes from personal views anyway, so it's like, you know, she kind of just tries to, like, trap Blaire in, like, this corner where she's like, yeah, well, if I think that what you're saying is wrong, then I'm just gonna pretend, you know, that it's still wrong and not acknowledge that I could be wrong about something, and it's really circular, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
What you're saying, but that doesn't necessarily relate to what the conversation about survivors.
About how people view rape and rape survivors, and if you, in your view, you know,
the society, like the broader society, though, is like a different group of people. In prison, we're talking about a specific group of people.
Yes, at one time, we're a part of society, the lowest of the low in terms of morality within society. And for those people to even think that rape is horrible, I'm not sure how well that goes with your idea that and people don't believe victims, etc.
Well, I'm not, but you're saying two different things. You're not saying people don't think rapists are horrible. Of course they do. Like, people acknowledge that rape is bad and scary and wrong, and they do not condone it.
So you think most people, rapists are horrible people?
Rapists have either are horrible people or have made a terrible mistake. Yes.
That fit in with you also believing that most people, or a lot of people, or it's very common within society, are also demonized.
Because you have, just because rape is seen as bad doesn't mean people believe someone when they talk about having experienced it. I think those are two different.
But that is not believing someone demonizing them at the same time, because for me, automatically been raped. I want evidence, I want proof, etc. Because again, when you say, you talking about how not believing them is destructive, but I'm not taking that position either. Skepticism in the middle, that's the only way to do it, in my opinion.
In the context that say that being of someone's claims in this context of sexual assault is dismissive, I don't think it's
Jizz. Notice what she just did there. Every step of the way that Blaire has tried to present an argument, she has been skeptical. It's like, well, I haven't seen the data on that. I would need the numbers. So, you know, I can't comment on that. But then when Blaire uses the same argument for, you know, people who claim to be victims of rape, it's like, you know, I start with a skeptical position first, and I need evidence for it to be true.
And then she decides to.
Let me finish. Laci Green says, oh, well, you know, that's just very destructive. You can't do that. You have to just believe people. Great.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the consequence. This is what happens when the appearance of being right ends up being more important than making sense. That's why I keep calling her arguments in the like dogma, because it's not right because of objective facts. It's right because I said it is.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Shit, what were we talking about?
How hypocritical Laci Green is that she doesn't want skepticism for those who claim to have been raped, but she'll be skeptical on everything Blaire White has to say.
Yeah. I don't remember now.
Well, I mean, this just proves it right here that she is entirely politically motivated. And if you say something that she disagrees with but has a logical point, she'll try to use logic to back herself out of it. It's like, you know, she can't discuss something because she hasn't seen the numbers of it. And skepticism is actually needed, that you can't just take people at their words. You need to be skeptical. You know, innocent until proven guilty. Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember. I was gonna say, you know what happens, or you know what would happen if everybody went with the listen and believe bullshit, you know, or especially if people lie about it, or you know, it does happen sometimes. People get killed because of angry family members or spouses, because you know they don't want someone to rape their sister, mother, daughter, wife, whatever. They get thrown in jail. They get hurt. You know, they get their reputation ruined. Whatever. And it's like that's honestly just how society is most of the time with women, because like, and it's sad that Laci doesn't like acknowledge that, because you know most of society, if you hear, and this is one good point that Laci made, was that excuse me, was that you are more sympathetic towards a stranger, you're hearing about a stranger who was raped, than someone you know. But it's like, women are so coddled in society that they're almost always believed, and you know, unless they are unless there's lack of evidence, or I don't know, lack of communication with or any kind of lying or hiding evidence of, or anything like that. You know, it's very complicated. So you know, she's just very one-sided.
Once again, it goes back to that whole she has all the idea that she has all the answers, and she is somehow ordained to speak down to everyone else to fix them.
Yeah.
And yes, Skittles is right. It's bad faith arguing. Laci expects benefit of the doubt, but refuses to give it.
That is a very good point. All right, so we're going to probably end within the next 30 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead a little bit more.
Something that the chat mentioned is that I think we might have skipped it. When Laci asked Blaire, like, oh, well, what kind of experience do you have with sexual assault? And Blaire was like, oh, well, I was, you know, sexually abused when I was 18 or whatever. And Laci pretty much just like, was just like, okay, well, I have been, you know, talked to so many rape survivors, blah, 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 and all talking about her experience. And it was just like, that was kind of...
Did she show no empathy for Blaire White on her experience?
No.
She didn't even ask.
She only shows empathy for people who agree with her.
That just completely destroys Laci Green's argument right then and there.
That's
if that
true.
She hears that someone has been sexually abused, and her immediate goal is to try to one-up that person, like, oh, well, I've talked to all of these victims, and none of them have experienced what you're talking about. And it's like, I don't care if it's your mortal enemy. I don't care if Big Red was in my face and she said that she got sexually abused. I'm going to be like, I apologize that's happened to you, or I'm sorry that you've had to go through that. I'm going to show motherfucking empathy to my enemies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes me think that Laci Green's not human. because she has no empathy, and empathy is a main part of being a human being.
I would argue that all feminists are aliens.
They are
Coming
very
from a matriarchal
very much
planet.
cultists, and cultists do not have empathy. I can say that much at the very least.
Yeah. Time this wants to play. Donate to my Patreon so I can get a better computer.
I'm just what
Skittles McStabby Pants said
I
that all
can't.
on stream should take off your shirts.
Okay, we didn't hear
And
any
in
of that
chat.
because the video was playing.
Skittles said everybody on stream and in chat has to take off their shirts right now.
Okay. It's off.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, you can't see it right now, but trust me, it's off.
Spectacles. You know, I don't know like how to quantify it, but for me, I think those things are fucking important. And I think talking about male survivors and giving them space is fucking important. And we need to talk about domestic abuse and how those dynamics can play out. And yes, women are disproportionately on the receiving end of some of these sexual issues that come up when we talk about these things in the classroom. Absolutely, disproportionate. But that doesn't mean that those things can't apply to men, and it doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk about those things. That's my feeling on it. I can't speak for anyone else, you know?
You know, and that's good. My issue was more of how you feel. I guess in your lived experiences, most feminists in your area do talk about it. Mine is the opposite. It's almost never a conversation. If you look at popular culture and feminism, popular culture, it really is never. I mean, can we agree on that? That it's like really, it's rarely talked about. I mean, if you don't specifically look at, you know,
Oh, yeah.
on one of these men's awareness websites, a lot of
Sure.
these, it's like male homelessness, rape rates, suicide rates.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah.
never hear about, you know, certain inequalities among women, certain stats from that arena. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. And just to add to that, to add to my agreement to you, I think that feminism in and of itself, I think I've heard you say you don't subscribe to this belief, but I really do. I do think that deconstructing kind of our view of gender and having a more open-minded, you know, allowing ourselves to think.
And
More
now
cult.
we come to the point where she puts herself over, and now it's right back to the script. Because
Apparently,
Drop that fucking pen. I'm tired of hearing it clicking
I
every
know.
5 seconds.
she's nervous.
No, it's not necessarily nerves. It's just she's.
cognitive dissonance.
No, I hate person. Like I do the same thing with change in my pocket. You know, I'll start playing with change, or I'll start playing with pens all the time. It's not nervousness. It's just habit.
What? But I wanted to say that balls. That apparently someone in the chat said that apparently later. I don't know if it's coming up soon or not, but she says that if men want equality, then they need to join feminism. And it's like, you know, after everything, you know, she might be slightly intelligent, but she's still indoctrinating and manipulating and the truth to her beliefs and views, and it's not.
I've seen that argument before. I've seen feminists even argue that they fight for men's rights, and I'm like, how? How do you fight for men's rights? What have you done? And most of them will shy away from the subject, but I've seen a couple try to actually talk about it. And it's like one girl who was actually in high school talking about, you know, men's rights. And, well, she's a feminist, but she defends men's rights. I'm like, how do you defend men's rights? Well, this one time I made a petition that boys need to change their dress code because they're just abusing it. And I'm like, how's that supporting men's rights? Well, you know, it's helping women out. And it's like, Do you not understand what men's rights are if you think that women are a part of the equation? That's what it is for feminists. That the only way men can be helped is if it first helps women.
Yeah.
Why would men want to join a group like that basically marginalizes or ignores every point that they have to make, or they're told to basically shut up? Where half of feminism doesn't even want men in the movement and the other half does. That there can't even be an agreement amongst all feminists that men should be a part of it.
Pretty much.
He for
And
she.
there's also the fact that how many times have we seen men who end up ascribing to it, and it's like they look like the worst kind of cult members. They look like not to put too fine a point on it, like a blank, and they carry themselves like a blank of just nodding, finding new ways to say yes, and just repeating the mantras that they've been told. And if
Mildred, you're a white male. That's who I immediately think of when you're talking about this. Skrillex is like, but you're a white male.
Well, jokes on them. I'm mixed. But there's also the fact that if they slip up even once, they're treated like the lowest scum imaginable. No matter how many contributions they've made, they can make 100 different contributions to this particular movement, and one slip up washes that all away, and then they're the worst person ever. I mean, how many times have we seen that where somebody who's on their side, he or she says one thing out of line, and then right under the bus, and they drag the bus right over them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the same thing happened to Emma Watson. She posted like somewhat nude photos of herself, and the feminist community was out for blood. It's like,
really?
Oh, that's not feminism at all. Yeah.
I didn't see that.
A lot of feminists were angry, and this happened within the last month, that Emma Watson, she didn't post nude photos, but she wore something where you could kind of see her nipples. And a lot of feminists were angry with her about it, saying that she wasn't an actual feminist if she was posing nudes of herself. Now,
you would
a lot
think
of
that
other
they'd be encouraging it because they're all lesbians, you know?
What's up?
I said you'd think they'd be encouraging it since they're all lesbians, you know?
Well, no,
I'm not sure
they
if
don't
you can go that far with it, because a lot of them look like they need to have sex explained to them with a technical manual.
Well, no, the problem is they're not against women showing their bodies off. They're against men enjoying it. If men don't enjoy it, then it's perfectly okay. But the moment that men enjoy anything a woman does, it is sexist and objectification.
Yeah, because Emma isn't necessarily ugly.
I wouldn't do her.
I wouldn't either, but men like her.
I mean, she looks like she's constipated all the time.
Yeah, it's true.
I think she needs some more fiber.
She's like a slightly more serious Kristen Stewart.
I can't stand her either.
Yeah,
I can't stand her either, but I would fuck Kristen Stewart before I'd fuck Emma Watson.
I would only
So
fuck
long as
Kristen Stewart if she was in her Runaways getup. Joan Jett.
10 minutes. Do we want to continue with this or just chat?
Let's just talk with the chat and see if there's anything else that they want us to talk about before we go.
Oh yeah. Oh, and Malcolm pointed out that they got mad at Dunham for losing weight, and wasn't there also some I can't remember her name, but there was some plus size model that they got mad at, that they got really, really mad at because she decided to lose a bunch of weight for her own health reasons.
Wow.
Yes, I do remember that. I don't remember her name, but she got a lot of death threats for losing, what was it, like 80 pounds?
Mm-hmm. And as somebody who's trying to lose some weight himself, fair can of Coke, lady. For actually committing to losing 80 pounds. That's not an easy thing to do.
No. But Mildred, my suggestion to you is every time you receive damage in D&D, do 10 push-ups.
No, I've got my own plan that's been working out pretty well. But most of the time I'm the GM, so just stopping to do 10 push-ups every single time one of my minions gets damaged, that's not feasible.
But I mean, yeah, what Mildred's describing there and what I was saying about Emma Watson, but specifically, you know, with feminism is so much a cult, so much an echo chamber that if you just, even just the tiniest thing you do, feminist, suddenly you have a whole gaggle of feminists on you. And I use gaggle specifically because this is how geese are. If they detect even one little bit of difference amongst their kind, they will all attack that one. Are geese.
They're basically like modern day
Nazis.
Nazis.
Noise like them.
Sorry, what?
They likely. Well, I'm only familiar with Canadian geese, which like to be numerous, annoying, and leave their shit everywhere.
Dovakin, good to see you again, has asked us to talk about Trump wanting to get rid of internet privacy. I have not seen that video by Monday Matt, so I don't really know anything about that. I try to avoid Trump as a whole because it's always just.
I think Angie's heard something about that, about how if Trump made the internet privacy or the internet history available to everyone, that he'll publish the Congress's entire internet history or something like that.
The guy from Cards Against Humanity would buy.
Oh, the guy from Cards Against Humanity would buy the
all of Congress's and their citizens' entire internet history and post it publicly.
Oh yeah, he'd buy it and post it publicly for everyone to see. Which would be interesting.
What was that? Steve Jackson? Or am I thinking of someone else?
Wait, who?
No, Steve Jackson is the guy behind GURPS.
That's right. If that's what the whole internet privacy is that all your personal content's going to be posted for anyone to look at, I have a feeling that Anonymous is probably going to step in and do something.
Not to mention, I very much get the feeling that that's something that's going to get shot down by the Supreme Court because it would violate search and seizure.
Well, except the fact that warrantless wiretaps have not been shot down by the Supreme Court, even though that violates search and seizure, because you have to have a warrant in order to do wiretapping. Mm-hmm. And yet, since the Bush administration, the second Bush, that's been an active thing. In fact, one of the reasons why I voted for Obama is that he promised to do away with it, and he didn't. The Supreme Court would turn it down. It might not get passed through Congress, though.
Yeah, when this sort of thing came about without it actually getting fully 100% passed, a part of me was sensing fear mongering, especially since a lot of people were doomsaying that it was going to be the end of internet privacy as we know it. And well, to be quite honest, this sort of doomsaying stuff, I see it so many times. It's like flavor of the week, and I try to avoid it as best I can, because it would ultimately be me repeating myself.
The thing of it is even if something like that did happen, I would see there being product solutions made on how to avoid that. That you could buy a special service that would prevent that from happening, or that some hacker somewhere would find a way to counteract that. And that's the thing about technology, is that given enough time, someone will find a solution to any problem. I mean, how is it that every version of Windows keeps coming out to be hack proof, and within the first 6 months, someone has cracked it? You know? So they are trying to control technology, and the thing of it is that you really can't. You can't control technology. The only way you can is to take technology away from everyone. And that's next to impossible to do. You know, every few years they have this privacy bullshit or something going on with the internet, like trying to throttle internet speeds, which didn't pass. I remember when I was in high school, they wanted to start charging like 50 cents for every time you sent an email. That didn't pass. I mean, every few years we hear about something about some president or some congressman wanting to do something to the internet. Sometimes it works, but most of the time it doesn't. So I guess I'm not going to be too worried about this whole internet privacy thing until it's actually...
Yeah. I don't know. I think that it's just it just sounds like fake news or something. But yeah. Anyways, anything else that anybody wants to say before we go? You guys just want to chill a little bit?
I'll do a bit of shilling. I'm in the process of trying to get the tech worked out for doing some stuff on Sundays. So keep an eye out on that calendar day. On Wednesday, next Wednesday, as I often do, I'll be doing the next chapter of my tabletop stream. We are still in the process of wrapping up Numenera and getting set for what we're going to be doing next. Once that is finished, I'll be doing, and this is probably going to be in about a month, I'll be doing a Q&A with them. And then after that, we'll be doing a Let's Watch. We won't use the actual footage just so we don't get taken down for some bullshit. But we'll be doing a Let's Watch of The Gamers' Darkness Rising. And of course, later on today, I will hopefully be on Nurgle's Stream of Corruption.
Cool beans. Did you say your channel and Twitter and all that?
I think I'm pretty sure I mentioned that previously. As always, you can find me on Twitter as Mildra the Monk, Mildra, all one word.
Yes. All right, and Mad Cat.
Well, as far as the update as my channel goes, I can still upload videos, but I'm not going to be able to do live streaming on my channel for 90 days. I have done an appeal with YouTube just to get back with me in like 24 to 48 hours, but it's been that much time so far, and I haven't heard anything. I don't expect them to repeal it. I do think that it's just a way of either trying to silence me or Andy Warski, since that was the video they took down.
Yeah.
What I'm going to be doing is hosting the shows now on Modern Medusa's channel for the next 90 days.
Yep.
Download them and upload them onto my channel. So you can still get stuff from my channel, but, you know, probably everyone who follows me on my channel already follows Modern Medusa, so you won't miss out on that.
Yeah. Did you want to say anything else?
No, I think that's about all that I've got. So until the next time I come in and crash the party, stay frosty.
And as for me, next week we've got Steve Moxon on twice, so definitely check that out. I'm trying to get a couple of other interesting guests in the next few weeks. Yeah.
Cool. Yep. So next Tuesday and Thursday at 6 on my channel.
Wait, did I say Steve Moxon?
Yeah.
Yes.
I meant Steve Brule. Sorry for that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's gonna be awesome. Make sure you check out that. I'm gonna make the fucking events for that and show everyone, hopefully. And yeah, and then as for me, you can follow me on Twitter at Vanessa with Cheese, and I got the my Facebook pages, Modern Medusa and Vanessa's Custom Art. And you can buy shirts and stuff over at Rage On. If you want a certain piece of art of mine on a shirt, or you want me to make you a custom one, I can do that too. Just message me on Twitter or wherever. And you know, I also do custom avatars and all that shit. And you know, basically anything art related you can buy from me. So yeah, there's that shit. And then, you know, you can always support me and Mad Cat on Patreon. Both of our links are in the description. And yeah, all that good stuff.
Mhm.
I do want to say there's a problem with Vanessa's link to my YouTube account. But if you just search mad_cat, you should be able to find me.
What about the link?
The link is incomplete. Looks like you just like copied and pasted from somewhere, because it's like madcat_e ... and
That's strange.
so you have to redo.
That makes no sense. It comes up as Mad Cat Light for me. Huh. Oh well, I'll try to fix it. But anyways, someone asked, do you only do stuff by hand and scan it, or do you do digital as well? The only stuff I've been doing for like the past year has been mostly digital. So what do you mean? Go check out Vanessa's Custom Art on Facebook and you'll see. But yeah, thank you everyone for coming and watching, and go subscribe to Blaire because she's awesome. Don't subscribe to Laci because she's lame. But yeah, you guys want to say peace?
Well, since he says stay frosty, I'm going to say stop fiery.
Okay, cool. All right, see you later, dudes. Make sure you come and watch us next Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.